Hello there, friends. This is Vicki from StampSmiles.com, and I'm very happy to be here today to share a tutorial with you on these Brutus Monroe Galaxy powders. I'm having some fun here, and I'm starting out with just a scrap piece of paper from my bin. This is using the Brutus Monroe Midnight 100-pound weight cardstock. And I'm taking these Galaxy powders. I have the whole set. There's a set of 9 of them, but I believe you can buy them individually as well. And I'm just taking some random colors of these powders, and you can see that I am popping the top off of them. And I'm using my finger to just lightly tap on them and just sprinkle them all over this midnight cardstock. Now, I've never used these before. These were a new play for me, just to do something random with, but they're all in Galaxy names, and I can name these off for you. There is Big Bang Bronze. There is Pandora Pink, Orbit Orange, Intergalactic Indigo, Comet Coral, Galaxy Gold, Satellite Silver, Gamma Green, and Blast Off Blue. You can see they don't spread around very much, and so I've wetted it as much as I possibly could, but you can see in the video how sparkly these are. These are just gorgeous. And I think they look best on dark cardstock, which you will see as we go along, because I have other projects I'm doing with these powders. But you couldn't have it any easier to make yourself a Galaxy background by just sprinkling powders on, wetting it down, sprinkling more powders on it, and getting it to look however you want it to look. They kind of stay put where they're at, but you can see how sparkly and gorgeous they really are. So I'll show you what I did with the background later. I'm going to make another background using these Galaxy powders, and this time I do have an A2 size panel of Raven cardstock from Brutus Monroe. And I'm also using this stencil from Brutus Monroe called High Tide. I'm taking some embossing ink from Brutus Monroe, and I'm just going over the entire surface of the stencil with the black cardstock with the embossing powder. I'm going to carefully remove the stencil, and then I decided I wanted to go ahead and clean my stencil. I don't like to leave it that way, so I cleaned my stencil off. And now I'm just going to take these powders, and I think that's the pink one I'm using, the Pandora Pink there, and I'm just kind of going across with it. You can see I'm just kind of carefully sprinkling it in a line going across the panel. That one is the orange color. That's the Orbit Orange that I've used there, and that's the green color. I think that one's probably one of my favorites. That's the Gamma Green, and you can see it's a really pretty bright color. So is that pink one. There's a pink and a coral, so I'm not sure which was the first one I used there. And that one is the silver looking one. I think it's the Satellite Silver. And then this one is like the purple color. I think it's Intergalactic Indigo is that color, if you're interested in these color names at all. And then I think I've got one more that I'm using here. I'm not sure which one it is. Okay, that's the brighter pink. So the brighter pink is the Pandora Pink, and the lighter one is the Comet Coral. And I'm just taking this is a dry brush. It's a flat, I think it's a 1-inch brush. And I'm just going back and forth in the same direction that I applied the powders over in a line. And I'm just kind of going back and forth and just blending it into the embossed ink areas that I did over the cardstock. And I think it's gorgeous. I just love it over the dark cardstock. You can still do it over the white colored cardstock, but it's not going to show up as vibrant as it does on the dark cardstock. I did notice that. And it's just beautiful. And the thing that I like about it is that when you're done with it, you don't have to seal it. There's no sealing it. As you can see here, I'm rubbing my finger over it, and I mean, it does not come off. It really does not. So we'll do something with that background later. Moving on, I have taken some Brutus Monroe lunch bag cardstock, and I am using a stamp this time. The stamp that I pulled out is called Smile On. This is a 3x4 stamp. I love that. We need more smiles right now, right? So I put it in my MISTI to line it up on my cardstock panel and use the embossing ink on it. And now I'm taking some more of the Galaxy powders, and that is the Galaxy Gold that I put on that one. I'm pretty sure that one is the Pandora Pink. And I'm going in a line just like I did with the stencil over top of my embossing inked image. That one, what was that one? I think that one was the Satellite Silver or the Bing Bang Bronze, one of the two. And then that's the green, the Gamma Green. And, you know, there's so many colors here to choose from, so you can't go wrong. And you can see how much of the powders I've used, and I still have tons left. That was the orange color, so that was the Orbit Orange, and that one is the Blast Off Blue. The Blast Off Blue is really pretty too. I like that one. And I'm just going in a line, and I'm going to do the same thing with the dry 1-inch flat brush and just go back and forth to kind of push the powders into to catch all the embossing ink on there. Now, I have been stamping a long time, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Pearl X powders or the Perfect Pearls, which are kind of the same. These kind of are along the same lines of that, only with these, you don't have to seal them. If you use Perfect Pearls or Pearl X powders, you have to have some kind of sealant, or you have to do something to seal it. You can see the pretty shimmer in this lunch bag cardstock. And again, this is a lighter color cardstock, and you can see the difference that it shows up. So one we have with the stamping with the powders, one we did with the pencil and the embossing ink, and then that one is plain just water and randomly sprinkling on. And so now we're going to start with finishing out and making cards with these. So with this image, I decided I wanted to highlight some of the sentiment from the image. So I just took a white pencil and just kind of highlighted certain areas of the image, which I really love. And then I decided to take a rectangle stitched die and just die cut out my sentiment to put on my project. And now I am also taking this So Emotional 3x4 stamp set from Brutus Monroe, and I took the small face out of it. Of course, this is another one of my faves, and I'm taking just some regular embossing ink. I happen to have this handy little cube on my desk from some kind of kit that I got from Brutus Monroe. I don't think he sells these individually, but I just happen to have mine on there, and I'm stamping the background of another piece of lunch bag cardstock, A2 size, top folding, and I die cut a white scallop piece to go behind my sentiment. Now, what I'm showing you is these sequence sheets, and they are cut in a slimline size style. And I thought it would be so fun to use this as an accent for my cards. So you don't have to just use these panels for slimline. You can use them for all kinds of projects. And it's just so pretty. It's see-through, and you can see through it. And it has a really pretty sparkle on it. I am using some tissue tape just to go on the back of this. And I'm kind of just lining it up because I'm going to have to cut off some excess. And I didn't want to waste, you know, the whole entire panel. So I'm just kind of lining it up where my projects is going to be so I can cut off that little piece there. And the tissue tape shows just ever slightly on there, so it's not completely invisible. It shows slightly, but it's not too bad. But I'm going to cover it up anyway with my sentiment panel. And then there's an extra piece that I can use for another project. And then that's what it looks like with my sentiment panel over top. And before I attach that on there, I decided I wanted to add some sheer metallic ribbon. And I'm going to hide that by taking my ATG gun. It's the perfect size to go on the width of my ribbon. And this is how I'm going to attach it onto my card. And you can see there I have a little bow up there on my the upper left corner. I have a little bow that I previously made with this same ribbon. This is how I usually do all the ribbon on my cards. And I usually wrap it around my panel if I'm doing layers, but since this is the base of my card, I decided to just cut off the edges of it. And now I'm going to use some foam tape, and I'm just going to pop up the sentiment over top of my card here. And if you're interested, Brutus Monroe also has a challenge right now going on using 3x4 stamp sets. So if you're interested, all of the stamp sets that I'm using here in this video are all 3x4 stamp sets, by the way. So I just thought that would be fun. I just took some glue and attached the bow on the side of the card. So for my next panel, this is the stencil background, and I'm using some Heather cardstock from Brutus Monroe, and the Take Flight is a 3x4 stamp set that I used, that I stamped the butterfly out and colored with aqua pigments. This is the Prism paper from Brutus Monroe, and I'm taking the sentiment from the Take Flight stamp set and embossing, using some embossing ink and embossing with Raven Sparkle embossing powder, which is awesome. You see that I'm taking my heat gun and I'm waving it back and forth, off and on that paper. That Prism paper is kind of thin, and it's really holographic, and I was worried about it warping and doing funny things. It seemed to be okay. It didn't look like it discolored it very much at all. So I was happy with that, and I just cut that out in a strip to put over top of my background. And now I'm just going to trim down my cardstock because I have an idea in mind how I wanted to finish out this card. And so I'm just kind of trimming off the pieces so that I can use this for my design. And any of the extra strips or pieces of these you can also use to put on another card if you want to stretch it out as far as you can go. And that Prism paper goes a long way. I decided to cut like 1/8 of an inch of a strip, a really tiny thin strip, just to have a little extra accent piece on my design. Pardon my little pieces of hair sticking out. And I'm just using some liquid glue and gluing over that strip over the top of my card. And then I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut off that extra piece off the back of it to go on my card design. And now on the card base, on the Heather card base, I love this cardstock color from Brutus Monroe, by the way. I took another small sentiment from that same Take Flight stamp set and stamped it in Raven Detail ink on the bottom of my card base. And I took a corner chomper and just chomped off both sections of my panels off the right corner. And now I'm just lining everything up so that it just kind of gives it a little bit of extra, I don't know, something special on the design. I really don't have no rhyme or reason. I just decided to do that. And now I'm just taking some liquid glue, and I'm not gluing the butterfly completely down because I wanted to pop off the wings on it a little bit. And I just set an acrylic block over top of that to let it dry. So now moving on to my ATCs, I am taking some masking tape. That's what's in that little Brutus Monroe dispenser up there on the left. I took some pieces, and this is from the ATC kit from July. This is the 3x4 firecracker stamp set, and I stamped the rockets and colored them. And I'm taking an image that has a bunch of stars with it and just masking it off and putting one star on each of the rockets. Now, that background galaxy piece that I made, I have actually cut 3 ATC size pieces for that, and I'm taking the chipboard from the ATC kit, and I am gluing each of my galaxy powder backgrounds onto each one of those chipboard pieces. The reason for doing that is when you trade the ATCs, these chipboard pieces are really nice and they give it some really nice stability, and also with all the water I put on my paper, it kind of helps keep it from warped, having to be warped a little bit. And I put it under the acrylic blocks to dry it. Now I wanted to create moons, so I die cut 3 circles from some sidewalk cardstock from Brutus Monroe, and I took some circle dies from Hero Arts, and I took the smallest ones and put them over my die cut circles. I do not want to die cut circles out of these circles. What I did was place these circles and put them on my purple tape and ran it through my die cut machine with that little foam shim on there, that rubber mat. And what it does is it keeps it from cutting all the way through. It keeps the metal dies from cutting all the way through. Now, when you use the purple tape, use the die cut through it, it's going to really stick down. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be very careful peeling it off so that I don't rip my cardstock. And at the same time, I'm trying to keep my die cuts in place on the purple tape because I have 2 more circles that I want to die cut. Or I'm sorry, not die cut, but emboss on my circles. This just gives it a really nice, fun texture on your design. And you can see it makes nice little craters in your moon. I just decided to take some ink. I have the Pumice Stone Distress ink and a foam blending ink tool that I'm just going around the edges for a little bit of shadows and dimension. And I decided, since I had my ink out, that I would take the Black Soot Distress ink and go around the edges of my ATC Galaxy backgrounds as well. I think it just, with the Midnight cardstock, it just kind of adds a little bit of extra depth to the design. So now I'm taking my moon pieces and my rocket pieces and placing them where I want them to be on my ATC. And I'm also taking the same stars that I used to put the star in the center of the rocket. I'm taking that same stamp image from the Firecrackers 3x4 stamp set, and I am going to make like a little star trail behind the rocket. So I'm taking my handy little cube of Brutus Monroe embossing ink, and I'm going to ink it up and put it on there. You can see I have my coffee filter, and I'm also going to emboss it with some Gilted Sparkle embossing powder. That stuff is so gorgeous, as you can see. And just when you think that you probably have too much sparkle and shine on your project, you don't. So I think the stars with some gold sparkle on it really made the ATCs stand out. So you can see all the pretty shimmer on it. And of course, now I need to assemble everything together. So I have some small foam dimensional pop dots to go on the back of the rocket. So I'm going to pop those up, and then I decided to just take some liquid glue and put those on the back of my moons to attach those to my ATCs, and then just use my scissors to cut off the excess from the ATCs. And then I thought I might as well add some more to it, so I've taken some Encore gold ink and just kind of slightly swiped it around the edges of the ATCs. And then I also have some Tim Holtz sticker sentiment strips. I found some perfect ones that went really well with my ATCs. And then, not shown in the video, I did take a gold gel pen and I went around it. You can see that in my still photo shot. And then here's my stencil piece with the finished card. And I also did this last card that I stamped and used the Galaxy powders with. You can see still shots on my blog at stampsmiles.com. Thanks so much for stopping by, friends.